Welcome to The Glass Ceiling, the podcast where business leaders share their stories, struggles and triumphs.
There is a lot in that. There's a lot of learning.
We sort of had different views on how the business should be ran.
The next 10 years looks like for South Australia.
Startup's the easiest.
I'm your host, Marissa Hankinson from Wavebreaker, and I'm passionate about amplifying their voices. Join me as we explore the highs and lows of innovation, entrepreneurship and leadership. From founders to CEOs, our guests will share their insights, experiences and advice on how to succeed and make a lasting impact. Get ready for inspiring conversations and valuable lessons. Let's shatter the glass ceiling, one story.
Want your own video podcast? Or just ready to get in front of the right audience?
At Wavebreaker Productions, we specialise in full-service video podcast production and guest appearance and PR services.
We help business owners, experts, and change makers show up with confidence on camera and on the mic.
From filming and editing to distribution and promotion, we handle it all, so you can focus on your message.
Whether you're launching your own show or looking to appear on aligned podcasts, we'll help you get seen, heard, and remembered.
This is more than a podcast. It's your platform.
Helping you be seen, heard, and remembered.
Find out more at wavebreakerproductions.com.
Joining me today is Rod Buchecker, a seasoned brand strategist, leadership coach and mentor to CEOs across Australia who spent more than 3 decades helping people lead with clarity and purpose. Rod's career started in the world of big name advertising, working with agencies like Clemenger, BBDO and Young and Rubicam, before founding his own consultancy, where he's guided leaders through everything from brand reinvention to business transformation. He is also the chair of CE30 at Vistage Worldwide, where he facilitates deep dive strategy sessions for senior executives looking to sharpen their focus and scale with intention. Add to that his weekly Focus Now blog, speaking gigs and board appointments, including Burnside Hospital and Clayton Church Homes. You start to get the breadth of his influence. Rod is now known for cutting through the noise. He asks the tough questions, brings practical wisdom, and champions a version of success that starts from the inside out. I would love to welcome Rod to the Glass Ceiling.
Thank you, Marissa. It's lovely to be here.
Yes. So 30 years in business is a big stretch. So I'm going to say, let's go back to the beginning. So did the beginning, was that the advertising agencies? Did you go to uni? Where did all this come from?
No, it started, I was born in Mildura. I'm a country boy. So I was born at Mildura Base Hospital. My parents were fruit growers in the area, and then I was there for only about 3 years, and we moved further down the river to the Riverland, and we owned the Glossop store and the post office and a couple of other fruit growing properties. And so I grew up as a kid on fruit blocks and farms, and it was just a wonderful time of my life and a really great growing up. I've got great friends there. I still have family in the Riverland, and in fact my sister has moved back to the Riverland, and my brother has a business there, and so I still have great connections to the Riverland and always will have.
It's interesting because I feel like I'm just having a deja vu because we've interviewed someone previously from this season for this season who was from Robinvale.
Okay, yep.
Which I believe is on the outskirts from
Mildura.
The farmers. But correct. For our listeners and viewers, the Riverland is part of South Australia.
Correct.
Very, very farm, agriculture, horticultural type of area. Significant export overseas as well. But it sounds like you were also significantly part of that community with the Glossop grocers,
yes.
The post office. Was that your first? Was this run by your parents?
It was, yeah. So my parents owned the store for a while. They also had fruit growing properties in the area. I went to school at Glossop Primary. And then eventually I went to school at Glossop High School. So I did my senior years at Glossop High, which I think sadly is now defunct. It's been one of those schools that's been taken over and no longer needed. So it was the central school between Berry and Barmera mainly, and the surrounding areas. And,
I know Barmera.
Yeah.
So
most of my family were in Barmera until recent times. Yeah.
So when did you start? So did you move from there? You said you had a little bit of time in Mildura, moved to the Riverlands.
Yeah.
How long were you in the Riverlands?
Right up until I was in my early 20s. I then was offered a role. I'd gone to work the ripe old age of about 17. I was in year 12, and at the time my father died and I needed to go to work. And so I wanted to do that as soon as possible, so go and help my mother. And so I did that, and I worked for Berry Fruit Juices, and I started life as a fruit receivals clerk.
Okay.
Working on a weighbridge, weighing trucks of oranges as they came in to the factory every day.
So you really didn't do the academic?
No, I didn't. I started my accounting degree while I was at Berry, but I got about halfway through it and didn't want to do it. And then they said, well, we think you're a marketing guy. You should maybe have a look at a role in sales and marketing.
So you went off the weighbridge?
I went off the weighbridge into the admin and spent a lot of time there working with the various state branches.
Because it's a national company, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a national company. It was a terrific time, really, to learn a lot about how to do things well, how to not to.
So I'm thinking, would this be, I don't want to age you, would this be, say, like mid to late 80s, early 90s?
This would be early 80s.
Okay, see, I made you younger than you were.
Yeah, you did. Even late 70s, early 80s, yeah. And I learnt a lot from some fantastic people there. And they asked me if I wanted to take on a role in Perth, which was a sales representative role. They said, you go and get some time under your belt in an actual sales role. And it wasn't something that I was loving, but I actually thought this is a really good opportunity for me to grow. And
it's very much sales is learning. It gives you a different insight into the business and face-to-face with that customer.
Yeah, it really did. And I think the great benefit of that was I got to know how people have to work in those roles, because later on I was going to be working with those people. And eventually I took control of a territory and so I moved into the glorified role of territory manager.
So you went down that sales
Yeah, so I went down
pathway?
that sales route for a while, but I was away for a couple of years in Perth, which I absolutely loved. And then I came back to the Riverland, and the next move shortly after was to Melbourne to set up the marketing office for Berry Fruit Juices in Melbourne.
So you done the sales, went through territory.
Yeah.
You'd worked in the admin, knew sort of a bit more operationally. Was Berry an international company? Did it export, or was it just national?
No, it was a national company then. It may have graduated onto some international stuff later, but it wouldn't have been too far outside of Australia. But at the time, we were focused on what we were doing at a national level, so every state in Australia. And but I got to know all of those offices, got to know all the people running them. Had some wonderful contacts that endure to this day. My brother-in-law worked there, my sister-in-law worked there, my brother worked there. It became a real family thing. And sadly now, when you drive past the factory at Loveday, it's obsolete. It's all shut down. It's a ghost town. Mm.
And that's really sad, because they're the kind of companies that really... the workforce would have been from the community.
Yeah.
And as you said, it becomes more generational within that workforce. And all of a sudden to see something close. Did they get bought out or merged? What
Eventually they were taken over, but not in my time. But there was 200 people there. And, I look back at my time at Berry, and I credit 3 people really in my career who've taught me all the things that have really stayed with me. And one of them was a guy, Alan Hancock, who came to run Berry and he was just a marvellous people person. Like, he knew every one of the 200 people in that factory floor. He would go and visit them every day. He would walk the floor. He had a system, which taught me the value of systems, but he would know whose birthdays were on, whose kids
And this
were.
probably was before computers. It was all that, and
but we didn't have mobile phones. We had nothing back then, really, and he just had a very good system. His EA was wonderful, and she would make sure that Alan knew that day whose birthdays were out on the floor, whose kids were doing what. There was just this really nice connection with people, and we used to call it management by walking around. I now talk about it as leadership by walking around, because really that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that people-centric approach, I do think is one of the things that we have lost over time within leadership roles. You know, it seems to, the more detached sometimes it seems to be the better. But I agree. So is Alan Hancock still with us? He's still been a mentor in your life?
No, he hasn't. He's moved to Perth, and I really have lost track of Alan in recent years. But I always credit him with that, giving me that level of understanding of how to connect with people. He went on to run Visy for Australia, which is the largest. I'm going to discredit them by saying this, but the largest cardboard box manufacturer in Australia. They're a lot more than that, I'm sure. And in fact, one of my good Riverland friends is state manager for them here.
And there we go. Were you not listening, Rod? You've not been listening to what we do when I've been chatting to you, and you're like, "Oh, blast."
I just get together with him to have a beer, and we're all housemates, played football together, etc. We never talk work, really.
No.
But Alan went on to run Visy. The Pratt family, who very, very strong business family, owned and ran Visy, and still do, I believe. And then Alan eventually retired and moved to Perth.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you said there was 3 people.
Yeah.
So Alan Hancock's one.
Yeah.
I will say during this conversation, I'll give kudos to someone who was fundamental and important in my life through my career, which is a chap called Douglas McKellar.
Okay.
And I think we're up to about probably a 30-year mentorship. He's still on the end of the phone, and he's on the other side of the world, but
wonderful.
that's okay. I feel like, I can drop him an email or whatever I need to. So who would the other 2 be?
Yeah, well, the other 2 were really in my advertising career.
Can I just go one step back? So you moved to Melbourne to set up a marketing office.
Yeah.
So what was that? Was Berry going on to next
so
stage?
Berry was going on. They were in fairly rapid growth, going on to the next step. So I worked with a guy, Peter Wood, who came in to run the marketing team, and he was excellent. Again, Peter, I learned a lot from Peter, and eventually we decided that Melbourne was where the centre needed to be, because we're doing a lot of business out of there. It was a bit more closer to people like Coles and Woolworths, and you needed to, have a home base that made it easier for you to connect, right? So I went down there as part of the team that was setting that up, and it was just another great time, really. And so I worked with some great agencies there, and the guy who actually ran the office, Andrew Ralph, convinced me that I should one day think more broadly about my marketing career and what I might do with that. And so eventually one of the agencies that I was working with said, you should be in advertising. And I said, I'm not so sure about that. I'm going to jump out of control and into doing what other people ask me to do, and I might not like that. And they said, well, if you have the relationship that you do with us, it'll be different. You'll be involved in all of that. You'll be engaged in all of that. And so you won't be losing control. You'll be an integral part, which was a pretty good sell job on why I should join advertising. But eventually
had you done any formal marketing qualifications or anything at that
point?
Not at that
it was
stage.
Just more... No, later on I did, though. And that was another great period. But that was with a few years down the track. I took their advice. I briefed a headhunter And I said, look, this is the role I want. This is kind of the relationships I need to be able to build. And 9 months later, she got me an interview, and it was with a company called DDB Needham, which was my first entry into agency world. I've really only had 4 jobs in my life, and Berry was the first one. DDB Needham was the second one, which was USP Needham then, and just moving into the DDB time. But USP was unique selling point.
Yeah.
And so I got this job with USP and or /DDB, and then I went in as an account manager, and 6 months later I was account director.
Quite a fast career trajectory.
It was a fairly quick trajectory, but I think it was always part of what was going to happen. If I could hit my straps, I'd be fine, and I'd have a career in advertising. And fortunately, I did. And then,
did you say fortunately or unfortunately?
Fortunately.
Oh, good. Okay. I was like, there's going to be a twist in the tail.
Big defining moment in my life, Marissa. Yeah, it was a great time again. And so I then stayed with DDB Needham for a year before I was asked if I'd look at a role in Adelaide. Okay. And then it turned up I had a couple of roles in Adelaide that I could look at, and I thought, okay, they sound like pretty good roles. I need to give that some consideration. So I moved over to Adelaide and took a job with Young and Rubicam.
Right.
And Young and Rubicam, Y&R as we affectionately called them, were US multinational that had started in the 20s, and Adelaide was one of the jewels in the crown internationally.
Yeah.
It was led by a guy called Lasse Torkelsen when I went there, and the creative director was David Manier. And David Manier is still active here. In fact, his son became a member of my Vistage group a few years ago, who I've known since he was about that tall, Matthew. But David became the managing director. Lasse moved back to Europe and retired. But Y&R was just a wonderful time. And David,
so would this been in the 90s?
This was late 80s. David, I'd been there for a couple of years, and David asked me if I wanted to go on and do some other things, and I definitely did. And I'd been lining up some career path plans. I was always, someone pretty keen to get ahead. And
yeah, it sounds like you always sort of had your eye on your future goal.
Yeah, I had a idea of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and I'd learnt a lot in my time at Berry. I was fortunate in Perth. I rubbed shoulders with some really interesting people, and that motivated me to do more.
Yeah.
And so what I did then was I said to David, well, I think there's a few options that I wouldn't mind considering, and some of those are internationally. Okay. So I wouldn't mind working away overseas. So
where did you go?
His good grace, he said, well, we could send you up to Southeast Asia and have a look at that and see if you like that. So I did a study tour and went to Y&R Singapore, which was really good.
Yeah.
And then I went to Y&R Hong Kong, and that was really good. And I came back and I was pretty keen on making the move. I thought, I'll probably go to Singapore. But David then surprised me with, well, we've got another job we want you to do back here. And then, by the way, we'd like to send you to Young and Rubicam Ad Skills in New York. So
right.
That's changed just everything.
That's not something that you're going to...
It changed absolutely everything. I just said, okay, I think I better do that then.
Yeah.
And, boy from the Riverland, never been out of the bush, really. I was...
Turns up into a different type of place. And so Y&R New York, what kind of, we've spoken about you being account director and obviously what kind of accounts were you actually working on?
Well, back then I was working on RAA, for example, for RAA insurance for a long time. So I did, I worked there, a lot of work with her. I led that account, but I worked on National Foods, which was National Dairies, which was Pura Milk. So launched the Pura Milk range, worked with some amazing people on that. Then I was able to launch Fruche, which was a dairy dessert, fromage frais dairy dessert. That was terrific. And so I was getting really
So you get
good
into the
connection.
FMCG.
Yeah. So FMCG was a big part of my world then as well.
And that would have, that would have been a legacy from your berry days. And...
Yeah, it's kind of made it easier because I understood what it took to get into Coles and Woolworths and what you had to do there, and how to. My repping time in Perth helped me understand how what call cycles are like. For example, how many calls can a salesperson do every day? What sort of relationships do they have to have with the people in the supermarkets? What about building new business? I'd spot a new deli being built and I'd go in and work out who was doing it and sign them up.
So that ground level work helped you to get where you were. It really
did help me a lot. So I was able then to talk at a level with clients with a deeper understanding of what it's like for them.
Can I ask, going from Australia, and I know you had some insights obviously in Southeast Asia, but going from Australia to New York, what was that a shock to the system? Could you bring things with you? What was your learning curve during that time?
Yeah, it was a pretty big learning curve.
Like this?
Yeah, it was like the bell curve was fairly rapid. But I did learn there were 38 people on that course, and we were all sort of ensconced for a couple of months in New York. And, I remember it fondly. And when I took my family back there a few years back, we drove over the Hudson River, and there was my apartment right there. I was able to say, see, kids, that's where Dad lived once.
They were like, you can't afford that now.
But there were 38 people on that course, and it really made me realise that no one was any better than anybody else. It was just this melting pot. It was wonderful, really. And so we had just intense time understanding what good advertising looks like, what the relationship with your clients needs to be. Young and Rivercam has a backbone. I still have it on my desk today, which is what a good agency looks like. It means you've got to have steel. You've got to be able to provide the right advice. You really means an honest no when all they want to hear is, yes, we'll do that. And we say, no, that's not the right thing to do. So I learned those things, in the right place, which was the centre of Young and Rivercam's universe. And I was so lucky to be there working on Madison Avenue. And
I have to turn around and say, give me New York any day. It doesn't have to be university. I think I'd prefer that.
Yeah. I got the good grounding that I probably couldn't have got anywhere else.
It's interesting because you mentioned very, very briefly in one of your, just talking about your career, that Adelaide's a bit of a jewel in the crown.
Yeah, it was.
Now, I've only been in Adelaide for 13 years, and I've heard that this was like a testing pot, and there was this, Adelaide was unique, and if it was going to work anywhere, if it worked in Adelaide, it would work. Is that like a myth, or is that actually fact?
That is exactly what it was. We used to have just about every multinational advertising agency here in Adelaide. And eventually the businesses that were sustaining those agencies moved interstate because the head offices were starting to locate in Melbourne and Sydney, and a lot of them were in Sydney. And so we lost all of this advertising billings, or these advertising billings to the eastern states. So eventually those agencies started closing up. But I absolutely concur, Adelaide was the test market. If you can try it here and it worked, you're pretty sure it's going to work somewhere else. But Adelaide was also the jewel in the crown for the quality of the work. And especially with Y&R, Y&R globally would recognise Y&R Adelaide as being a place that just delivered outstanding creative work. It was so good. So it was a nice place to be. It was a good time to be part of that business, and it really set me up for the next step, which was into Clemenger.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were in New York about that strong client relationship, saying no when no needs to be said, giving advice.
Yeah.
That is very, it's a significant skill to have, to say no to a client and to give the advice and then to stand by that because, that's your account.
Yeah.
And before you moved to Clemenger. But obviously you still did that moving forward. But what is that? What that advice and that scariness? How does that? We have listeners here who are starting out in business, maybe scaling up their business. Saying no, is scary.
Yes, it's.
How do you navigate that?
Well, I would try to give advice as to why. One of my great friends who was a client, Mark Wallace, became general manager of marketing for the brewery. For SA Brewing, and one day we were having a discussion on the phone, and he said to me, "Why are you always arguing with me?" I said, "Well, Mark, you're the 6th marketing director in the brewery in the last 6 or 7 years. I'm the only account director.
Yeah.
So brand custody is my domain. He would say, well, it's my domain, and I'd say, well, actually, I've had more consistency.
You've got history, heritage, you know what's worked, what hasn't
I can
worked.
help you with navigating where that brand should be going because I've been there the whole time. But at your end, it's been chopping and changing all over the place, which was typical. So it taught me that consistency in brand management at agency level was so critical. And I guess back when I started in advertising, that's what the advice was from the account directors that I was working with who said you should be in advertising.
Yeah.
That's what I ended up doing. Yeah.
So after the advertising, where did your career go? So is that when you set up your own consultancy?
Yeah, well, I then went on to Clemenger BBDO for 15 years and as a director there. And that was just, again, another pivotal moment. The 3 people that I mentioned, Alan Hancock was the first one, then David Manier was the second one, who taught me a lot about creativity and the value of that. And then David Fuller was the managing director that I joined at Clemenger BBDO. And he taught me, how to make money, how to not lose money, how to be disciplined, how to, again, show a bit of steel when you needed to, how to be strong. And
Fuller is a name that's still very, very strong.
Yeah, it's a different Fuller.
Is it?
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
apologies.
Fuller Marketing is not that same Fuller. David Fuller's well and truly retired now, but again, a great mentor. And someone, I always used to think, well, I need to let David know what's going on about certain things, but he would already know. He was just one of those intuitive leaders who just read the room beautifully.
So those 3 people obviously were significant influence to you, and you obviously brought their learnings into you, your style, and you're now taking that to other people?
Yeah, I think that's what I've been running my consultancy now for 16 years, and it started off as being marketing advice to people. I came back from a hike up in New Guinea and came back and said to my wife, Susie, I don't think I really want to do it anymore. We had a big house to renovate, so it was a bit of a step, right? It was a leap, but she was very supportive, and I said, okay, well, I'm just going to renovate the house, and we're okay, right? So within 3 months, I think within 3 weeks, she told me I was looking bored as ever.
Yep, you were getting under her feet.
Yeah, that's right.
I've heard that before now.
Yes. But within 3 months, people were asking me if I could help them with some things, and I started saying yes. And then eventually it just, in the beginning, it was around marketing and brand advice, but then it became more what about this? What about that? Then I was introduced to a guy called Adrian Gearing, who set me up as he set my career path going in the tech/Vistage worldwide world.
So, so tell me what Vistage is, because you've spoken.
Yeah, so Vistage is an international peer group, and it's 50,000 members in 40 countries. It's headquartered in San Diego. I've been a chair now for 11 plus years, and I've been associated with my training, etc., for probably closer to 13. And so every one of those 50,000 people is a member of a group, and usually it's 12 to 16 thereabouts. In Adelaide, it's a little bit more, sometimes 18 to 20.
So that's a peer group?
So it's a peer group, and we come together every month. And the meeting that I chair is next week, every first Thursday. And we come together for a full day. We have a resource speaker in the morning, usually. Could be on cash flow management, could be on team
that
building.
Constant learning, growing,
constant learning all the time.
Advice.
Had an international, well, the last 2 months we've had international speakers. And so there's a lot of learning there. And then there is challenging conversation in the afternoon of helping each other solve problems and issues.
And that's all at peer level?
It's all at peer level. So it's very close, confidential, safe space. And then they have a couple of hours a month with me. So
to just do that one-on-one work that they may not feel appropriate.
And I'm starting to do 2-to-1 now, just mix it up a little bit. I posted on LinkedIn recently where we had 1-to-1 started off, went to 1-to-2, went to 1-to-3, went to 1-to-4, and it was gold. It was a really
And I'm assuming
time.
that they're different companies, not in the same industry, so there's no conflict.
No, that's right. Usually you won't have any conflicting businesses in a group. There has been a couple of occasions where that's happened, but only on the proviso that both companies are happy with that. They don't really compete, although they're in the same industry. So usually it's non-conflicting though, and it's a global model. And what we do here in Australia, here in Adelaide, is very similar to what chairs do and groups do all over the world. Yeah. But at the same time, I had, as I started that Vistage journey, I met a guy called Matt Church from Thought Leaders Global, and I did a couple of things there that really helped my coaching life. The first of those was a thing called $1 Million Expert, which is how do you take what you know and then use it to teach others in a way that would be beneficial to them, and you build relationships at a pretty deep level. So I've maintained that. And then I did his mentor accreditation program. Did both of those programs twice, and I did a few other things with Matt, and I'm part of his circle now and have been for all that time. So for 15 years probably I've been connected with Matt. And that's influenced my coaching. So now I have this portfolio of interests in Vistage, in private coaching.
But that's good for your client though. Like you can
absolutely.
bring this to your client and meet their client needs to meet their objectives.
Yeah.
And you do keynote speaking as well?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of that anymore. I really don't have capacity to do it. In the thought leaders space, there's sort of 6 avenues of where you can operate. It's speaker, author, trainer, mentor.
And you're an author.
Facilitator, coach. I am, and I've got a couple more on the go.
Okay, you have to sign this for me. Oh, you did sign it already. And going, that was a nice surprise. Let me read it out. So, dear Marissa, enjoy. And it says, perspectives on focus and why nothing happens without it. Thank you very much for that. I didn't realise.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Why did you write this?
Well, that's a collection of thoughts from a lot of people I rate highly. I thought, well, one of the things I understood from Thought Leaders Global was you need to publish to be more active, more engaged, a more credible resource.
Yeah.
So
I've just opened to Matt Church. He was talking
Matt,
about.
right there.
That's very spooky. That I've just opened to Matt.
And you'll see David Manier in there and a couple others.
Oh, that's really good.
But you need to publish. And so I have 2 other things. There's a second version of that coming now, which is almost there.
Yeah.
And I'll launch that later this year. More and more publishing on the go. There's 2 other publications.
Yeah.
I love writing. I'm very fortunate to be able to indulge myself. And,
do you have a favourite? Do you have a favourite quote in this? I know there's lots of them in here, and it's like, obviously.
No, my business partner, Chris Bollen, is in there. There's a good one. If you go to the back, you'll see he's in there twice. And I think it's the second one where it's about listening and speaking.
It's not the first one, did you say?
I think it's the second one.
All right, let's go to page 55.
And it's a microphone, him screaming into a microphone, or a person.
Okay.
Is that it?
Can I read it?
Yeah.
Many leaders love the sound of their own voice.
Oh, yes.
Practice listening to people twice as much as you talk. This reverses the usual ratio. Listening to your people will yield the focus you have been looking for.
Yeah.
And that's one of them is where you go, you've got 2 of these and 1 of these,
That's
use
right.
them accordingly.
Exactly.
I've got a very good friend who says that to me all the time. But I would say, I think I could talk to you forever.
I would love
Rod,
to keep talking to you, Marissa.
But unfortunately, I've been given the timer.
Yep.
But I would like to say that where can people get this? Through Amazon?
They can get it through me, and in a couple of months' time, they'll be able to get it through my website because I'm rebuilding my website to a Shopify site.
Okay, so you'll be able to e-commerce
and
it.
There'll be others on there by then.
Okay, so can you tell us what your website is?
Rod@rodbuchecker.com.
Okay.
So rodbuchecker.com.
Okay. Now I'm going to do this because we had this discussion before. So Buchecker is Buchecker.
Correct.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. It's
So
been
delightful.
interesting. And I thank you very much for this. And I will reach out for the other books in due course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marissa. Cheers.
Tuning in to this episode of The Glass Ceiling. If you've liked what you heard, please subscribe, as we'd love to have you as part of our community. We're grateful to our guests for sharing their inspiring stories and insights with us. This podcast was brought to you by Wavebreaker. Join us next time as we shatter the glass ceiling, one story at a time.